Hold on, I had a little hiccup right here. There you go. We here. So how you doing? How y'all doing?
Good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nathaniel.
Yeah, so we got Gina Muhammad. The global happiness expert on the scene. And we got Salah Hinda, right?
Yes, Saleh actually. Saleh
Saleh Hinda. Hinda.
Hindi, Saleh
Hindi?
Hindi. Yes,
Saleh Hindi.
Hindi.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I got to say that a couple of times in my sleep so I can get it.
It's a good Sunday. Love it. Love the energy. Both of you
Yeah,
guys.
but
Thanks for
it's really good to have you on the show, man. You and I spoke in the past, and it was a very great interview that we had. And basically, just wanted to touch bases again and just bring this new concept, this new energy to the forefront. We got to put information out there, to see who it resonates with and what laws can actually increase. We here to increase the laws of others. We're not here to decrease. We're here to increase. So I'm Nathaniel Evans, your leadership developer, redemption coach. Gina's going to introduce herself as she always does. So
Okay. Thank you, Nathaniel. And I am super excited about today because I have some questions. And my name is Jeannie Muhammad. I am your global happiness expert, founder of Freedom to Live. And as always, and I say this, I am so grateful to everyone that takes time to come and join us because we know that we are all in this together and we want growth. And we don't want to just grow by ourselves. We want to take a whole lot of people with us because we're going to the top and we don't want to be lonely up there at the top. We want to be able to say that we have a lot of people with us. So, with that, let's get this show on the road,
that's
Nathaniel.
right.
And okay, is Salih going
So
to
Lee, yeah, you can just
uh-huh.
introduce yourself real quick. I put your tag on there for LinkedIn so people want to be able to find you. They can find you. And
Yeah.
just give a brief introduction to yourself.
Yeah, my name is Saleh Hindi. Currently a programmer at a rideshare company. I come from an unconventional background. I grew up in kind of a tight household in suburban Ohio and Dayton, Ohio. Shout out to people from Dayton. But yeah, love was always plentiful, but money was always tight. And I'm realizing a lot of people in tech don't come from the same background. So I'm kind of doing some soul searching on structures in the world that keep people down, keep people in low income situations, and make it expensive to be poor. And so I'm currently looking for creative solutions around that to help people out of poverty, help people get ahead in life, and not penalize them just for being who they are. So thank you for having me on here. I love the podcast. Love
Definitely.
all the episodes, and hoping I can learn from you guys and teach you guys something new as well. So
Definitely. We got an hour to put the information out there and connect with our audience, our people. And people look at life and it's like, it's just like a cut and dry thing. And me and I forget your Salah, right? Yeah,
Salih?
hey,
Saleh.
let's
Right. Saleh.
Salih.
Saleh, I got it. I want to keep watching your name up, right? So, Saleh, we actually spoke about systematic structures, that's actually in play that hinders people from moving from one plane to the next. And we was actually focusing on reentry, people come out of prison, and also communities of certain communities. They have to be communities of color, but communities that focus on minorities, right?
Mhm.
That because it's not just communities of colors, it's actually in this backlash. It's also communities that's of minorities that's actually strategized against from different systems, government structures, prison programs, and things of that nature that actually stop people before they even get out the door of their own households or exit prison structures that were set for redemption, right? So my first question to the man here is, how do you have redemption when you come out of prison without having proper economical structures in place?
Yeah, it's hard. After talking to you and doing my own research, it sounds like you go to prison, let's say for 7 years, and let's say you exit with money with and not a lot of people do. Your credit score is reset to zero. There's no credit history. So FICO and the credit scoring system and all these credit reporting agencies, kind of reset your credit score. So let's say you have money, let's say you have resources somehow out of prison, um, it's harder for you to get a loan. It's actually more expensive for you to get a loan, even if you have the same amount of money that of somebody who's existed out of prison, right, for 7 years. And so you have a system that's kind of set up in a weird way, like that's not based on actual facts of the world. It's based on like, whether you've been paying off a credit card, whether you've been paying back your loans. If you're prison, you haven't been doing that, right? And so coming out of the gate, this card is set against you. So how are you supposed to reintegrate into society? How are you supposed to build a better life when you're coming out of the gate with the card stacked against you? Even if you are reformed internally. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
Gene.
Yes, Saleh, what I'm hearing from you is that, have you heard that old saying, numbers do not lie? Well, what I'm hearing from you is that in some cases, numbers do lie because it depends on what system that you're looking at and who's putting out those numbers. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely, and so like the credit score system in the US is kind of built around that. For most people, it works really well, right? Like most people, you pay off your loans and it gives a good picture, but there's a lot of people it doesn't work well at all. For people who've been in prison for a while, for Muslims, I'm a Muslim, I grew up Muslim American, and interest is banned in Islam. So some people who are conservative don't use a credit card because they're not comfortable with the interest part of it, right? They don't want to get into debt, for example. They just use a debit card their whole life. But what that does is that makes your credit invisible. So let's say you have a lot of money. Let's say you have a lot of cash flow and a high-paying job even, but to the credit reporting agencies, you're not really, your credit invisible. They're called, thin stack, I believe, thin file. And so, you have these resources, but all loans are now more expensive. Even getting a loan is harder, For Black Americans, even Black Americans for Black Americans versus non-Black Americans of the same credit score, even it's twice as hard to get a loan from traditional banks, actually. So even if you do have a credit score, even if you do part of the system, it's harder. So, I don't know if numbers, are always telling the truth here.
Yeah, because I hear things as far as we all on the same plane, and we all have the same opportunities. So why should I be successful and you're not? Like, what do you think about that terminology? Because I hear a lot of successful people say that all the time. They don't say when they're poor. They
Absolutely.
they say when they break through the barrier, right? And now they got rich friends and they got rich opportunities. And as me and Jeannie was talking about last week, it's ironic that people that are successful receive all the gifts, as the people that actually need the gifts never receive the gifts because they're tagged as being unsuccessful. What is your intake on that?
Absolutely. I grew up in Section 8 housing in Ohio, so come from a different background. And, I stumbled onto programming at a young age, figured out computers and stuff, and that led to, thankfully, thank God, a very lucrative job. And I would like to think that, anybody can do it, right? Anybody could have done what I did and discovered computers. But I think it's just luck, I think my parents bought a computer when I was younger, and, I was kind of bored in Ohio, right? There's not much to do out there, so I just kind of discovered that. But like I imagine a life where I did it, like I'm from Palestine originally, and I think all the time about what if I grew up there? Opportunities there are a lot different, right? So I like to think that it fits my mold of society of like, if I could have done it, anybody else can, right? But who knows? If I was more, for example, athletically inclined versus more programmatically inclined, I probably would have left Section 8 housing, right? I still would have been in that community today. And so I think it kind of goes against people's worldview that not everyone will make it. You have to get lucky at some point, and I got lucky, and now there's plentiful opportunities for me. But for other people, especially for people where the system didn't work for them, right? Like why, like if you grew up in that kind of environment, loans are scary because then you're put in a debt trap. So for wealthy people, loans are leverage. Loans are actually a good thing that helps you get an education, buy things that you need now that you can't afford now. For wealthy people, this system works, but for other people, like, why would you trust the system if it's always put people in debt?
I like that because I believe in unity. And I think that what happens in this society is that a lot of times we're divided based on our religion, based on our economic circumstances, based on where we grew up, based on our skin color, and not. And a lot of times the people in the which we're not in the minority, we're actually a majority. People of color are actually a majority, but then again, with that play on words and the play on numbers, we're made to think that we are the minority. But if we of color actually could see that we all have more to gain number wise, because we're talking about numbers, number wise, we would have more to gain if we united the way that we're doing today. And I thank you for being here because I always say it's an example of showing that we can work together. It doesn't matter what we are told as far as numbers are concerned, but if we have the same mindset, one of wanting to see everyone, no matter who you are, this is everyone, all humanity advance, then we can do that by uniting and saying, as you were saying, not that I'm going to say I've made it, and because I made it, that means you have the same opportunity, because it's not the truth. So thank you for that. I thank you for making that clear.
And it's really, I always go into scriptures and I talk about scriptures, and the Most High says, in a time of wealth, do not forget your friends, right? So if the phenomenon, if the concept is phenomenal that I made it, now you can make it, why would the Most High instruct you not to forget your friends in a time of wealth, right? When I go into Arab store, I got a few Arab friends. They got a nice big platter, right? And everybody eating out that same platter, right? And they say, "You want some?" Sure. I'm not going to turn it down, right? Because it's not about the physical connection; it's about the spiritual connection, right? When I put my hand in that platter and take a piece of meat and eat that meat, that's showing a form of unification. So when I see this man later on, it could be 2 years from now, he's gonna say, "Yo, what's up, brother?" Because I put my hand in that platter and I took some food to eat. He always gonna remember me, and I'm always gonna remember him. Right? If I ever see him in a space of disparity, I'm gonna cry out for him to let him know I'm here to help him. Just because he gave me that one piece of meat out that platter.
And I'm going to say, Nathaniel, from the Holy Quran, it says, want for your brother what you want for yourself. And we have not passed truly into brotherhood and love for one another. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And love for one another until we want for our brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves.
That's a fact, because with the absence of love, there is no love, right? So you can't say that you love me and I'm starving. My family is hurting. My mother passed away, and now it's 3 children there, and no one's there to take care of the 3 children, right? You can't say those things. Like, we can pray 5 times a day, we can fast on the holy days, right? We can eat food, you know what I'm saying, on specialized days and things of that nature, and we make it universal, right? But is it universal to pass around that one platter so we all can eat, right? Will you take your money and put your money on that platter and pass it around the room the same way you may be doing your scriptures and your philosophies and your ideologies? Will you actually do the same thing with your money on that platter? No, you hide it. You hide that platter. That platter is for your eyes only. It's in a safe with a secret lock and another lock on top of that one. Nobody can get to the money.
Okay, I want to ask Saleh a question. you dealing with numbers, and I'm just a small business owner. And when I go on these different platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, and this is about spreading the love. This is about me, because my whole thing is I want to spread the love, because my philosophy is we all should be operating on that high vibrational level of love. So I'm trying to spread the love to as many people as I could come in contact with. Now, when we go on these different platforms, numbers, they work on numbers. How can I, as a small business person that's trying to reach more people, how can I use what you have to teach us about numbers? How can I help that to reach more people?
Yeah, it's hard, like you're not going to change the world all at once, right? It takes a community, but I believe, the ideas you guys share are really powerful. I think it's easy for hate to spread on social media, gets engagement, but I think people are realizing this now. Um, you know, this whole thing with the coronavirus, right? Like we've kind of seen how fast something so small can spread. And with corona, it's kind of like respiratory, right? You have to kind of be in the same room as a person or something. It's like over air, I guess. But it's crazy. You kind of have to do it like person to person, but it's spread all around the world within months. And so in the biology literature, they talk about this number called the R constant. That's like, oh, if you give corona to on average one person, it's like an R constant of one. If you give corona to like two people, it's like an R constant of two, right? And corona is able to spread around the world with like a very low R constant. I think it's like slightly more than one. It's like a less than two, right? And so you on average spreading an idea to slightly more than one person, just consistently pretty often, can have huge viral effects around the world. It can change the world really fast. So it's hard because there's a lot of people in the world, there's a lot of people who are trying to do bad things. You have all these big banks with like their interests, their profit is directly tied to people being in debt, people not knowing their finances, people struggling to get out of debt and paying fees always. But at the same time, with this community, with these good ideas, I think are powerful ideas. I think it can just travel around the world really fast and overcome, I think, a negative system. And so I think what you guys are doing is posting often, consistently, right? Like, you got your podcast isn't as big as Joe Rogan, right? But I think your ideas are more powerful. And I think if you post consistently and just everyone spreading the world a little bit by a little bit, that it can lead to powerful change. I keep thinking about the podcast you guys had about moving mountains as leaders. I recommend everyone go listen to it. And moving a mountain, yeah, of course, that's one of my favorite podcast episodes of all time. I'm a big podcaster or listener. And so the big idea from that I took away is that moving a mountain is almost literally impossible, right? You really can't do it yourself. But with the power of community, with the power of love, with the power of passion, and getting people riled up, like you can move a mountain, you can make these big changes. Like the problem of tackling these big banks and structures to keep people down is an almost impossible problem, right? Like it's really hard. But I think just getting yourself out. I think consistency is key. I think is what I'm trying to say. Like consistency and having a powerful message that's true and authentic. I think people will realize that, and it'll overcome hate and that
overcome systems too. Because I remember me when I came out of prison, I did 11 and a half years, and I remember I got my first job, and within like 3 months I got a credit card. Right, they just sent me a credit card in the mail. I didn't have to apply for it or anything. They just took a credit card and sent me this credit card, right? And you said something earlier that really piqued my interest. People coming out of prison are coming home with zero credit, right? And for me, I feel that's really impossible because everybody that's in prison works. Right? So basically, what they have done with this industrial system is separated from the core of society while instructing people to still live as if they are a part of the core of society.
Wow.
So
absolutely.
This trap is more detrimental than what people actually think because it deals with legacy. This trap strips away legacy, and it takes away the legacy of society that the society say that is built on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Yes. Great point. Great point, Nathaniel, because we as people of color are always instructed to wait for something later on. You know, we're made to think about pray to go to heaven, and you'll get yours in the by and by,
that's right.
without being encouraged to get ours here on this earth while we're here, because this we know about now. You know, we know
How
about
about
where
that?
we are now.
How about that? How about that?
So, how about us investing in now and what now is going to do for us to elevate to another level? So that's why, and Salih, I am so happy to have you here for the reason that you are evidence that we have affected at least one person, you know, and what you were saying about, it's spreading. So if we have and Denise is here, I'm so happy to see Denise
Yeah,
back with us again, because she always has some positive and uplifting comments, and it shows that it is spreading. And that's what we're striving to do, be consistent in our message so that people like you, me, Nathaniel, will carry this message on. Because I know Nathaniel, that's why I love working with him. I love being in the same space with him because of his experiences and what he brings to the table, and the fact that he's so authentic. I mean, he puts it out there. He's not trying to hide anything about who he is, where he's been, his experiences, because he knows, just like you know, that it starts with one, being consistent, being persistent. So thank you. And Nathaniel, I just want to thank you for me being in your space.
Yeah, I
definitely.
want to thank Nathaniel too. I remember it's like a one conversation I had with you, but changed a lot for me. Like I remember it was like a Monday morning, something I was really tired, I was yawning, and you had an anger, you had an energy that would like woke me up and energize me. It's good to just kind of energize people, and we try to change the world, but we might not be the one to change things, right? I think that episode had a thing about ego and how ego kind of pushes leaders in the beginning, but it can't be the only thing, right? And so uh, a good leader is someone who inspires somebody else, and so thank you, Nathaniel, as well. Like I really appreciate
Most
that comment.
definitely appreciate it. Appreciate it. And I actually, that was a statement I made, but it was also like a question in the middle of that statement that I made about working in industrial complexes and then coming out without the essentials of working in an industrial complex as a worker. What would that do towards our society, let's say within the next 10 to 20 years? If we continue with this structure of allowing prison systems to make people, our people, out of workers without them having the benefits of being workers, what impact would that have on our society within the next 10 to 20 years from your research?
Yeah, I mean, like people talk about the opportunity of like, oh, everyone can have a shot at the basket, right, for basketball. But then some people start out farther back than other people, right? If you start out in a super rich family, you're basically doing a layup, right? If you start out in a family where someone's, for example, been in prison for a while, had major debt, and started back, you're shooting a shot from like way back, right? Not a sports person, but I think that's the analogy. And so when you talk about these structures, like let's say someone gets out of prison, let's say they don't go back to prison, let's say they are able to build a stable life for themselves, which is an accomplishment in itself. Well, now their families kind of start out a little further back, right? So, people talk about like slavery's ended a while ago, but the structure, we still feel effects of that. These families that have been affected by that, they might be fine and like now, but like they could have been further along. They could have had greater cultural knowledge, they could have had greater financial wealth. And if you have more financial wealth, well, you can do riskier things. You can do things like pursue entrepreneurship and try to build the next future. A lot of people I grew up with, they didn't really pursue entrepreneurship because it's risky. You don't, if you fail, you lost the money, and you kind of sit back a little bit. Or people who have a lot of financial wealth, they can take more shots at goal. And so it just kind of changes the world, you know? And so, and why should someone who's wealthy take shots at opportunity, entrepreneurship versus someone who went to prison, right? Like someone who went to prison also has good ideas, also has ways to change the world, and we should be giving them a chance as well.
Yeah, and I just want to share that because you made a great point. I remember I was incarcerated. I was in this prison, and I was a facilitator in this prison. And I was actually, I'm gonna tell the prison, it was Mid-State Correctional Facility I was in, and I was basically pioneering there with a couple other men, and we was doing facilitation classes, teaching individuals about ART, aggression replacement training, and also socialization from within the prison and also when they actually are released. And I remember I was called to this big meeting, and I was instructed that they wanted me to revamp their curriculum. And I said, yeah, I said, well, I read the curriculum and it does have big words in it. And I said, so most people that's in prison don't have a real, deep educational experience. So I said, I always modify it when I do the teachings anyway. I never let them know that those big words are actually in there. And I always change it around for them anyway. And so she said, yeah, please do that. So I took it back. I modified it. I changed this word for that word and stuff like that. And I gave it back to him. And she said, no, I thought, you and I, we're not on the same page. There's a miscommunication. So I said, I didn't see a miscommunication. You said that you wanted me to modify this curriculum, and this is what I did. And I remember just sitting there and, the woman's making passes at me and different things like that because I'm in prison. I'm a man. She's a woman. So she was trying to seduce me to actually do the work. And I'm sitting there and I got the poker face on, right? And I said to her, I said, well, if I do this curriculum, because she wanted me to revamp it and put it in my own words. So basically, she wanted me to take me and put me into the curriculum. And I said, well, if I do that, I'm going to have to be on the curriculum, and I'm going to have to get paid financially for me to do this work. And she said, that's impossible.
Wow.
And so when she said that, I said, well, at the end of the day, I'm a prisoner and I'm not qualified to do that.
Oh, you know what, Nathaniel, that is so, that's interesting because that shows you what happens in prison. And it also happens in everyday life for people of color. And because our brains are picked all the time for our ideas, and they're used to elevate other people, and we never get credit for it.
That's correct.
Never get credit for it. And that's why, and sometimes we're so happy that they will put us in a position. They say it's a position of power. They give us a title. They give us a little office sometimes with our name on the door. And we're so happy because we've never had anything. We come from poverty. We come from backgrounds where nobody ever recognized us for, our achievements and everything. So now we're recognized for this. But what they're actually doing is putting us in these positions so they can pick our brains for because they know that they're wonderful, ideas there, but they don't want to give us credit for it.
Yeah, because basically it's still in your legacy for their legacies, right? And that's my next question is the basic credit system designed to take away legacies, or is it designed to increase the legacies of all people?
That's a good question. Yeah. Is it designed to take away legacies, or is it designed for everybody? I think part of it is that there's no malicious person. I think there's some structures in place that are like just totally malicious and people are trying to rip people off. For example, payday lending. I can go on and on about payday lending and how just absolutely malicious that is. But for example, the credit system, I think it just wasn't designed properly. I think it was designed for I think 80% of Americans that have like a fair or good credit score, but then everyone else, 20% is actually a huge number. Like what is 20% of 300 million? I think it's like 60 million. It's crazy. And so for all those people, they're left behind. And I don't think it's quite malicious, but I think it just doesn't work. And I think it's kind of an antiquated system where, now we have other ways of, very recently also, other ways of verifying, income, seeing financial health of people. For example, immigrants come to this country, sometimes like high paying jobs as doctors, but can't get a loan because they're new to the country, And so I feel like the system maybe isn't the system specifically now we have isn't made to put people down like intentionally, but it just doesn't work for people, which has the effect of putting people down. And when you don't include voices in the conversation, for example, Black voices, Muslim voices, people who went to prison, people who had different backgrounds, well, then you leave out these opinions. You leave out you make progress for these people, right? Like the thing about your example about making the words simpler, right? Well, that benefits everybody, not just people with different educations, right?
That's right.
Like same thing with ramps. People with disabilities who need ramps. Well, that's actually good for everyone to have ramps, because if I'm carrying something heavy as an able-bodied person, it's nice to have a ramp to help myself, And so when you have these people from different backgrounds giving their opinions, it not only benefits people from those same backgrounds, but everybody. So to your point about them using your legacy to further their own legacy, absolutely right. Like that happens all the time. And that's really why it's important to include people from different backgrounds in conversations, because you get these different opinions, and hopefully you can reward these people for giving their great opinions.
Yes. Yes, and that's one reason that I am always excited to interact with other people of different backgrounds, because then we're have the opportunity to understand that most of us have more in common than we do differences, even though our differences are highlighted most of the time, but we actually have more in common. And if we because this system, the way it's set up, it was, well, I believe it was never really set up with anyone in mind other than our founding fathers. The founding fathers, they set different systems up that did not take into account immigrants, other than, maybe the Irish or the German, or, people from Europe. But they did not take into account um, immigrants from other backgrounds. And so, because the system was set up to highlight that segment of the society, then just by default, we kind of come along and get you know, the crumbs of the system, because we were never educated about the thing. In school, we're not taught about finance. We're not taught the importance of having good credit. We're not taught the importance of how to have good credit. You know, we're just, and you mentioned payday loans, because I got caught up in payday loans at one time. It was a horror story. It was a horror story. I was rushing around on when I would get paid, and this is just truth. I think I had 6 or 7 payday loans. I know, Nathaniel, don't laugh at me, but it's the truth. And I was rushing around every day. I had a good paying job, and I was rushing around from one payday loan place to the other, paying them so that I could reborrow that money, so that I would be able to live for that week and work so that I can pay them back. I was caught up in a vicious
cycle.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying when I asked him that question. It was loaded, but I want to be clear that when you create a system that doesn't take an accountability the lives of other people that's basically in your country, right? You have created a system to rob them intentionally of their legacy, right? Yes, some people will slip through the cracks, and some people are going to be lucky, like my brother here, right? And some people are not. But the system is not designed for everyone to be lucky, for everybody to actually reap the benefits of how it was created, right? You said so
Right.
earlier, Gene, that you only can create for the moment where you're living in, right? You have to be a great visionary, and your vision has to come from humanity standpoint in order to be able to think about those that's coming 50, 60, 70 years after you are gone and dead, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
When we think about our legacy, do we think that we're going to die? Even though we know that we're going to die, do we think that we're going to die?
And Nathaniel, sometimes I think that when we think about legacy, we only think about it in terms of the money, in terms of money that we're going to leave someone. We don't think about it in terms of knowledge. Money that we're going to leave someone. We don't think about it in terms. Oh, okay. That was so good. It had to be repeated.
That's right. That's right. We're not thinking about it on that level
Mm-mm. No.
Mm.
because we don't see a lot of time, we don't see ahead of who we are. We only see according to the life that we're living now. And we want it to be a continuum. We want it to be a continuum, right? We don't want it to ever stop, right? This is the point of actually being alive, right? Being alive basically enforces the fact that you are life, right? So any system that comes to place that takes away life is here to take away life, whether they want to do it directly or indirectly.
Right. Right. And that's why it's important that people such as you, Nathaniel, you, Salih, even Denise. Denise is watching, and I'm always so thankful
Yeah,
for her.
definitely. Good to see Denise.
Uh, is that putting this all together in such a way that other people can see that this is for all of us. This is for
Mm,
all humanity. I always talk about, and emphasize people of color, but this is for all humanity. Anyone, because no one is left out. To me, it's all about, because if you start thinking about leaving out any part of humanity, that's really not about spreading the love,
that's
you
correct.
know, because
Absolutely.
spreading love means including and being able to see the good in all of humanity. And so that's where, to me, the numbers, because I am really not uh, like so much a numbers person, in the sense that that's why I admire people like you, Salih, because you understand those numbers, and to me, I just admire you. You know, I greatly admire you, and especially you're not cold about it. Sometimes people that deal with numbers are cold, and they don't see the humanness in that. All they see are the numbers. So
Absolutely.
I admire you for getting past that and being able to not only see the numbers, but see the importance of the love aspect and what it can do for humanity.
That's a
Thank
fact.
you. And if you don't mind me interjecting a little bit,
Yeah,
you
go
mentioned payday lending earlier. I just want to share some numbers that I've researched. You've had experience with payday loans, but not a lot of Americans have, and especially people who work in tech, work in different fields. But they're actually, despite so payday loans, the predatory kind, are actually banned in most states. But despite this being true, there's more payday loan storefronts than there are McDonald's or there are Starbucks.
Wow.
There are actually almost double as many payday lender storefronts as there are each McDonald's or Starbucks. But where do they exist? They don't exist in Manhattan streets, right? They exist in poor neighborhoods, so they're not as visible to most people. Other numbers: 12 million people every year in the United States take out a payday loan, which is
Wow.
crazy. So that's like about $30,000 or 30,000 people each day. There's a whole city of people like each day taking out payday loans. These are facts from the Consumer Finance Bureau, I believe they're called. There's some agencies, but the average payday loan is $350 with $500 in fees, which is crazy. So you're borrowing $300 to pay $500 in fees, right? Absolutely predatory. And every year, actually, $9 billion is paid in fees to the payday industry. So imagine, what are payday loans? So generally, payday loans are, when someone's having a cash flow issue, they work, for example, every day, right? But they get paid every 2 weeks. And so let's say you get an unexpected expense, then you need money now, right? So people take out a loan or an advance, and they get paid. That's not inherently wrong. Like people can front money and get paid early and stuff. But the problem is industry is that they have predatory rates. And so they have crazy rates. So, for example, you're borrowing $300, and a few months later, you're paid back, and you pay $500 in fees, which is like just total usury. There are payday loans that are more ethical that have come up recently, and I'm experiencing with some of those business models myself. But that's kind of what payday loans are. And also, like, let's say you go something tangentially related, overdraft fees. If you're spending money out of your bank account and you go below zero, you usually charge extra just for being poor, right? It's like, that's not total nonsense. You charge $35 for not having money. Like, how does that help anybody? So wanted to bring that up. People don't realize how big of a deal it is. Like this $9 billion a year in fees paid to payday lenders, and there's about $12 billion a year in fees paid for just overdraft fees. It's loan sharking. Yeah, exactly. The common term is loan sharking, right?
That's correct.
Yes. And I just want to say this. Now, I'm not advising anybody to do this. This is just what I did to come from under being in hell and being held hostage to payday loan, because you cannot have you cannot get a payday loan. At least I couldn't. I don't know what it's like now, because I've been out of hell for the last about 20 years, 30 years, that I came up out of the hell of that. So I don't know what it's like now. But at that time, you could not get a payday loan unless you had a bank account, unless you had had a checking account, unless you had a job, because you would write a check to them out of your bank account, and that was how. And every time you got paid, you wrote another check to them. What I did, I stopped one day and said, I'm in hell already, so I just refuse to pay anymore. I just refuse to pay. What are you going to do? You're going to come cart me off and put me, well, I'm not going to be running scared anymore from what you can do to me. You're not, I fear nothing and no one but Allah. So that was when I came to that conclusion. I do not fear you. So whatever you want. So I just I stopped paying them.
And then come back later on and try to fix it once you get yourself, probably together, whatever.
I did. I did. I did. I mean, I rebuilt.
But at your terms,
after that, but I was free. I was free. I have freedom to live. I think that's what my company came.
That's the name of your company, Freedom to Live. And that basically goes back to, question the brother here on looking at our present credit history and looking at the systems as far as like come out of prison or living in different communities. What solutions have you found that people can use to navigate around this type of structure and to be able to live again and take control of their financial lives to position themselves for the future?
Absolutely. And it's going back to Jeannie's story right here, like how much of a shame it is in our society that somebody needed help and just temporarily very willing to pay it back. You're not trying to run off, right? You're just trying to pay it back when you have a chance. How much of a shame is our society? You have people like that, and I have someone like me who has just spare balance in their Cash App account or Venmo account. You're not really doing anything, So one solution I'm exploring right now is this ability to say, hey, someone needs a short-term loan to cover day-to-day expenses, give them that loan, and then have it pay back whenever, right? Either on a small fixed fee, not interest-based, because in my religion that's banned, and which benefits everybody, Muslims and non-Muslims, right? That's interest should not be a thing, in my opinion, for these kind of situations. But either give you the option to pay like a fixed fee, or like a small like thank you tip or something like that, just to get it sustainable, and then just pay it back whenever. Like, I don't need the money now or next month. That's one option for these payday loan industry. I feel like, and same thing with cash overdraft fees. Like, we have math and science, right? We can predict when someone's about to hit zero on their bank account. How about I just loan you $100 so you don't hit zero, so you don't pay a $35 fee just for not having money, right? Insane that we have that system. So that's overdraft and payday lending. In terms of credit, there have been solutions that come up. For example, debit cards that let you that float you for every transaction, and so when you pay it back, you're actually building up credit-worthy history. There's one solution I found by this lady, Maya Bittner, that lets you build up a credit history through your rent. And so as you pay rent, you're building up credit history. There's one organization I found called Solo Funds. These are both for-profit institutions, which I can talk about, nonprofit model versus for-profit. Jeannie, I know you talked about it before.
Mhm.
But what they do is that they're community peer-to-peer lending. And so they found, for example, within church groups or within Black communities, that when someone needs help, if you have that community already, you can go to somebody and say, hey, brother, I need $100, $200. Can I loan it? Can I borrow from you? Not everyone has that community, especially coming out of prison, especially coming from a different country. Just growing up, for example, I grew up Muslim, and there weren't that many Muslims in Ohio at the time. So for some people have that community, some people don't. But with the internet, we're all connected together as humans. And so that's a solution I've seen. So there have been different solutions tackling different parts of these structural problems, which is good. They've all kind of come up in the last couple of years, but these industries are like 20, $30 billion a year industries. So there's still a lot of room to grow until these industries are zero, until banks all charge $0 for overdraft fees, or until all payday lenders are gone. Like, there's a lot of work to be done. That's the mountain we're trying to move. I'm trying to move, and thank you
Awesome.
all for helping me try to move the mountain. But those are kind of solutions. And so, I want to call out Jeannie. Mentioned how, these solutions, or this kind of stuff doesn't benefit just Muslims or minorities or Black people. They benefit everybody, right? So I'm hoping to kind of bring that kind of perspective to everything. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful because I believe that until we can, or enough people can adopt that attitude, and and it really only takes a few of us to really get that ball rolling, because you know how it is with a snowball, and if you roll it down and it's a little small snowball and it start rolling and rolling and rolling, and it picks up size as it go. But that's momentum. That's
Momentum. That's right.
momentum, and keeping it going. And that's why it I am so excited about what we have started, is because it is momentum, and I can see it picking up.
Yes,
I can see it slowly picking up.
mhm.
And what you the ideas that you express are so important, because it is about helping people. It's not about trying to make a living off of the pain and suffering of someone else. And if you have money, if I have money, if I have money to, and I have been blessed at times to come into large sums of money. And what I have done with that, people that I knew that needed help, I gave them the money, and I followed the dictates of the Holy Quran, where it says have witnesses and sign an agreement that this money will be paid back on this date at this time. Everybody comes into that agreement. No interest charged, not just the loan will be paid back.
And that's
And
it.
I
Having
believe,
faith. And if they don't, then the universe is going to pay you back.
and right.
So
And
you
if you want
find
to take
blessings
it,
in different ways.
and if you want to take it to like a small claims court or something like that, you have it in writing. You have it in writing, because if someone makes an agreement and they agree to pay you back, then there should be some recourse that you have, uh, to use. And if you said, like you said, Nathaniel, if you can afford not to get that loan back and you just turn it over to karma, because karma, karma would get you.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna,
That's
we
right.
all know
Yeah.
what karma is.
Yeah,
We
that's
know what
right, man.
karma is.
Yeah. And I wanted to point something out too that I read today. Killer Mike, he he actually acquired a $2 million loan to start the first digital bank, right? And he basically linked that bank to basically more the banks as well to give people that really don't have access to more the banks access to more the banks because they have a lot of criteria and stuff that you have to follow to actually get involved in some of these banks and things of that nature. So I really commend your path and I believe that you're on the right track. You reached out to me through my LinkedIn profile, which was great. It was like, let's do an interview. Hey, I'm all for it, right? And it was a great experience. To see what direction that you was going in, and that you using your own path and your own upbringing to basically prevent others from experiencing the same thing, right? And I think this is what leadership is about. It's not about how much money you got, how many cars you got. It's about what type of legacy you're going to leave behind you, to people in the world. I was reading the scriptures and it was talking about Jacob. The Most High changed his name to Israel. But they said that when Jacob passed away, everybody and their grandmother showed up at his funeral.
Oh, sounds familiar.
Right? Because he did so much righteousness in the land. He was so humble, man. He moved forth as a vessel of peace, understanding, and knowledge, right? And that's the legacy that he left behind him. Is why we're still speaking about Jacob, Israel, and neither
That's
one of us have ever saw him with our own two eyes. We've only identified him according to our hearts.
right, right, right.
And I think this is really important to be able to identify one another according to the heart, right? Not according to things, right? Not according to acquisitions of this or acquisitions of that, because all those things will decay just like you, right?
Hmm.
So it's really important on where you place your manifestation at in the land. And yes, as leaders, we're going to fall, but we're going to get back up. And we're going to fall again, and we're going to get back up. And it's going to happen again, and we're going to get back up again, right? This is what makes us leaders, right? And we have to be leaders within our own minds and our own hearts and our own spirits. You know what I'm saying? To know that we do have the audacity to fall and get back up because of who saw our fall and who saw that we're going to rise again.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And I started following you, Salih, today because I'm excited about seeing where you are going
That's a
and the
fact.
things that you are doing. And I don't want to miss out on it because I get excited when I see people, especially young people, that are really grasping what it is what it truly means to be striving to help humanity as a whole and not take advantage of other people and their ignorance, because a lot of things, because I truly was ignorant when I got into that payday loan situation. I did it out of and I was in a situation where I needed money desperately and I was taken advantage of. So I'm always happy to see people that have knowledge, the knowledge that you have, and you're striving to share it so that it will benefit other people. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing your knowledge.
Thank you. And
So we
I
tone it
think
down. Got any final words? We tone it down. And Jeannie gonna do our little brief
I want to hear what
meditation.
Salid was getting ready to
I
say.
know.
yeah,
I'm letting
if you don't mind me leaving with a quote, you mentioned Killer Mike, and his neobank is called Greenwood. Recommend everyone check it out.
okay.
It's money in the black community.
Yeah, Greenwood.
Greenwood, yeah. And so Killer Mike is it seems like he has a lot of money. It seems like he could just coast for the rest of his life, right? But he does this thing where he gives back to the community and does this really hard thing of starting a new bank, right? So it makes me kind of think of this quote of to those who are given much, much is owed.
That's correct.
I wanna
Yeah.
encourage everyone in tech listening, everyone in who's doing really well, everyone whose business is doing well, to think about that quote and say, hey, it's easy to just coast the rest of your life on your laurels, but if you're given a lot, you should think about how you can give a lot back. Because I think that's our main
Oh, that's
responsibility. So shout
great.
out to Killer Mike for doing that. Like he could have easily just not done that and just chilled the rest of his life, right? Shout out to you guys for doing what you do, and it's hard making a podcast, right? So I appreciate you spreading the love.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.
Appreciate you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Definitely.
You ready for me to tone it down,
Yeah, I'm
Nathaniel?
ready. Yeah, just bring a new type of energy in here. It's been a great interview, great energy. But we're gonna definitely, and we're gonna increase that. Through the sister Jean, she's gonna allow us to resonate the things that we have learned, that we've taken in, and appreciate our time and our moments in this life.
Okay. I want everybody to relax. Okay. Take a deep breath and let it out slow. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Let it out slow. Take a deep breath. Let it out slow. Starting with the top of your head, relax your scalp. Relax your scalp. Come down to your forehead. Relax your forehead. We're coming on down to our neck. Move your head back and forth. Relax your neck. Relax your shoulders. Relax your shoulders. Come on down to your arms. Relax your arms. Come down to your fingertips. Move your fingers. Relax your fingers. Come on down. Relaxing as we go. Relax your legs. Come down to the calves. Relax. Relax your toes. Relax your toes. Take a deep breath. Let it out slow. Take a deep breath. Let it out slow. I'm going to count backwards from 5. When I reach 1, open your eyes slowly and take a deep breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Open your eyes slowly. Take a deep breath and let it out slow. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
A blessed day.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Peace and blessings.
Brother, I'll be in touch.